Hello, you're watching the Daily Roundup by People's Dispatch, where we bring you some of the top stories from around the world. Let's take a look at the headlines. 20 protesters injured in police repression as Peru protests continue. Israeli soldiers kill one more Palestinian, 43rd killing in 2023. South Africa invokes disaster law amid energy crisis, unions reject move. Germany workers stage protests against declining wages. Thousands of Peruvians on February 9, Thursday, took to the streets across the country in a new day of national protest, demanding the resignation of de facto President Dina Boluarte, closure of the Congress, fresh general elections this year, and a constituent process. Indigenous and peasants communities, social organizations, and trade unions held peaceful mobilizations in different regions throughout the country to demand an end to the political crisis that has gripped the country since the legislative coup against the democratically elected President Pedro Castillo on December 7, 2022. In Juliaca city in the southern Peru's Puno region, hundreds hit the street to mark 1 month since the massacre of 18 protesters at the hands of public security forces. On January 9, police and military officers opened fire on thousands of protesters who had occupied the Juliaca airport as a part of nationwide anti-government protest, killing 18 protesters and leaving over 60 others severely injured. On Thursday, a group of protesters once again tried to occupy the local airport to demand justice for the fallen protesters. Once again, the police agents violently repressed the protesters with tear gas and metal pellets, leaving at least 23 injured. For the past 2 months since December 7, 2022, tens of thousands of people, mainly from the long neglected and marginalized countryside of Peru, have been mobilizing in different parts of the country to demand radical political changes. According to reports from human rights organizations, in the past 60 days of social protests, more than 60 people were killed and 1,000 were injured. Israeli security forces on February 9, Thursday, shot and killed Palestinian man in Hebron in the occupied West Bank. Reports said that the 22-year-old Sharif Hassan Rabah was shot dead by Israeli soldiers at the entrance of the Fawar refugee camp south of Hebron. With yesterday's killing, Israeli forces have so far killed a total of 43 Palestinians since the beginning of this year, an average of almost one Palestinian killed per day. Just a day earlier, Israeli forces had killed another Palestinian, identified as 17-year-old Hamza al-Ashkar in the city of Nablus in the West Bank. The teenager was killed during one of the increasingly regular and extremely heavy-handed and violent Israeli raids in the Palestinian towns and villages. Following the killing yesterday, the Israeli army in a statement claimed that Rabah was killed after he charged at the soldiers present in the area and tried to stab one of the soldiers. However, the army did not report any injuries to any of the soldiers in most of the similar incidents of killings and violence against Palestinians by Israeli forces. The Israeli side almost always claims that the Palestinians killed or even injured or arrested had attacked the Israeli forces first. In many of the cases of such killings, evidence which comes to light later in the form of Palestinian eyewitnesses accounts or CCTV video footage debunks the Israeli claims of Palestinian attacks. Despite several of their claims being repeatedly debunked, the Israeli authorities in most cases either don't carry out any criminal investigations into the extrajudicial killings or hold biased probes. The unabated killings have been repeatedly denounced by human rights groups and the United Nations, which have called on Israel to put an end to its shoot to kill policy against Palestinians under occupation. Last year, Israeli forces had killed close to 170 Palestinians in similar raids and incidents, the highest death toll in any year since the Second Palestinian Intifada, which began in the year 2000. Moving on to the third story, South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa on Thursday, February 9, declared a national state of disaster over the country's widespread power shortages. In his annual State of the Nation address to the South African Parliament, the president said that the country is in the grip of a profound energy crisis and that the crisis has progressively evolved to affect every part of society. He added that we must act to lessen the impact of the crisis on farmers, on small businesses, on our water infrastructure, and our transport network, and warned that it threatens to inflict massive damage to the country's economy, besides also adversely affecting the country's social fabric. According to reports, the country has been suffering from the energy crisis and the related power blackouts throughout the country for the last few years. The crisis has been building up due to a variety of factors. The country's biggest union, NUMSA, has placed the blame solely on the government's mismanagement and negligence. It has said that the crisis has been used to permit private operators to benefit. NUMSA has said that they will take the government to court if the government declares the rampant power shortages a national disaster and will try to get the government's move interdicted. It has alleged that the government will misuse the declaration to carry out even more corruption and loot than it has done in the past. And finally, on February 9, Thursday, workers from the public service sector, including healthcare, daycares, city administration, public transport, municipal waste management, etc., in the German states of Berlin, North Rhine-Westphalia, Hesse, etc., went for a warning strike protesting low wages and poor working conditions. More than 3,500 people, including professionals from the state-owned Vivantes hospitals, Berlin University of Medicine, Berlin Waste Management, etc., have demonstrated at the Orient plants in Berlin on Thursday, protesting the fall in real wages. On February 7, Tuesday, teachers, social pedagogues, school psychologists joined in the warning strike called by the Education and Science Union, demanding smaller classrooms, better infrastructure, and good working conditions. Last week, around 70,000 postal employees across Germany went on a strike, demanding a 15% increase in their wages. According to reports, trade union Verdi and the German Civil Service Association, that's DVB, have demanded a 10.5% increase in wages, precisely an increase of 500 euros for around 2.5 million employees in the public sector at federal and local level. As the countries across Europe, including Germany, are facing a soaring inflation and in the working class sections, have been demanding a decent hike in wages at par with inflation. The German government continues to be insensitive towards the demands of the workers while they're busy in sending more funds, arms, and ammunition to Ukraine to fight the Russians. Citing the annual report by the Federal Statistical Office, trade union Verdi had said that the real wages have fallen in the country for the third year in a row. Even though wages have gone up compared to the previous year, inflation will be more than double that in 2022, nearly 8%. And that's all we have for today's episode. For more such stories, visit our website peoplesdispatch.org and also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.